humans, my name is Dale Kingsmill, and you want more D&D videos. And that is totally fine by me. D&D is basically the coolest pastime on the planet. But specifically, in my Q&A video, you may remember I said that the only other homebrew rule set that I really have at the moment that I could tell you about was my my animal companions and familiars homebrew stuff, which is real dumb and no one should ever do. But y'all are asking about it, so I guess that's what we're talking about today. I think you will find that it's not as useful as you had hoped, and that you really probably shouldn't use it. So here it is. The dumbest animal rules that you could add to your game. Maybe not the dumbest, maybe I shouldn't go there. Alright, I got my trusty DM binder, let's get to it. Essentially what my rules are about this are they make it harder for people to get their animals. Mostly in an attempt to really enforce that bonding. There's something about, on both ends of the scale, you have, you know, your people who really just want to use their animals as a meat shield and just, you know, run through them real quick and don't care about them at all. Or on the other end of the scale, you get the people who want their animal to be exactly what they picture in their head, which is fine. And you should let them do that. Remember, these are dumb rules that I've added. But yes, in my game, it is harder to get your animal companion or familiar, but you also get stronger benefits from them. But things also go badly if they die, heads up. So essentially, any character who wants to earn an animal companion, I don't want them to just start with one necessarily. Maybe, we'd discuss it, and I don't want the animal to just appear suddenly and be like, oh, bam, there's a bear now, don't worry about it. And there are so many other ways around that. These rules are stupid, but any character who wants to get themselves an animal that is beyond just like a pet or a mount or, you know, something pretty standard, they have to go through an extended trial, sort of. Right, well, basically, I think you could probably think about this system as being a little bit like the resurrection trials that Matt Mercer does, but not to do with death. So these systems fall into basically 3 categories, I guess. The one that's the least fleshed out are the druids and the warlocks, just because I don't have a druid player or a warlock player. Then there's the animal companion system for rangers and the familiar system for wizards and sorcerers. In the case of druids and warlocks, it's a matter of a full day's meditation. Druid I know a little more, because one of my players was skewing towards druid for a while and ended up cleric. A druid has to find sort of a magical nexus that's on the intersection between ley lines, which will be signified by a bunch of things like, you know, a fairy ring on a mound with trees surrounding it all bending in towards the middle. You know, stuff like that. And they sit there and they meditate for a full day, and eventually an animal will come to them out of the wilderness. And once they've earned that animal's trust, that animal will become bonded to them as an animal companion. The ranger is a little bit more like earthy, I guess. A little less magic, a little less divine. The point with the ranger comes from an ongoing thing in my life where I just say that really I think the rules should be that if you can capture and train an animal with your bare hands without the use of any weapons or tools or whatever, unless I guess you made them with your bare hands, no help from other people, then you should be allowed to keep that animal as a pet. So people would be allowed to, like, own a rhino, but only if they can take it down and train it with their bare hands. But conversely, also, if you can't capture and train a cat, then you're in trouble. It's a stupid thing I say. This is a video revealing that I say stupid things all the time with my stupid mouth. But anyway, that's a dumb thing I say, and I translated that into how rangers get their animal companions. Basically, as they go through the game, they can take note of whatever animals are in a particular area. I find that the wilderness travel is a great way to sort of give them tastes of what animals are around. You can check out my wilderness travel video up here if you haven't already seen it. And once they've decided, yeah, I think I want that Pegasus to be my animal companion, or I want that lion, then they have to track that animal, and then they have to best it in unarmed combat. Basically, like, break it like a horse, and then depending on what kind of an animal it is, they have to actually earn its respect beyond just capturing and breaking it by either, if it's a carnivore, hunting with it is a good option, and subsequently eating with it, or if it's a herbivore, something like moving with its herd and escaping predators together. Once they've done all this over an extended period of time, they have a bonded animal companion that basically won't leave unless death or an extreme clash of intent sort of breaks that bond. And finally, the most detailed, because my sorcerer seems to be the only one interested in an animal at this point. Now, from the beginning, they will have the knowledge of how to perform an arcane bond ritual. This doesn't have to be for a familiar, they can have a soul-bonded object, which requires different things. But in the case of animals, let's see what this says. Arcane bond rituals. Undertaking either ceremony will necessitate the use of an appropriate summoning or enchanting circle. That looks like this. I just took a little drawing of the Stargate, pretending it's flat. It's fine, I don't think any of them watched that show very much. As well as the presence of an arcane literate witness to act as a magical signatory to the ritual, so basically just any arcane spellcaster, or I suppose you could even say someone who has, like, thoroughly studied the arcane, even if they aren't actually like a wizard or anything themselves. For an animal familiar spirit, material components required for the ceremony: animal scales, animal feathers, and animal fur to sort of represent the animal kingdom in general. As well, you need crushed or powdered essence of arcana. That's a deliberately vague statement because I want to see what my players will do, but I have given them these pearls that when you crush them, they do cool stuff, so that would work. It's basically just, you know, a crushed up magic thing. As well as the blood of the caster to be drawn fresh during the ritual. Because see, here's where we get to the reason I use this even though I'm aware that it's kind of dumb, is because in my gaming world, there's a really particular flavor of magic which is kind of important to the overarching sort of themes and villains and plot and all those things. Plot feels like the wrong word. But I want the magic to have kind of an old magic vibe to it, and setting up something like an animal familiar or a magical animal companion as something that's a little bit beyond you, rather than just like an animal that you go poof and it's magic now, or the 5th edition equivalent of like magic, it's an animal now. I wanted it to be a little bit like somewhere between a Horcrux and a Patronus, but a little bit less flashy than that. So essentially, I'll get them to place the animal components that they've collected around their adventures, and they'll decide which placement they choose. I don't know why I put them in specifically this order on the diagram. That's just an example. If they were to be like, oh, I will put the fur in the middle section, right? Then at the end of the ritual, that would have an impact on the kind of animal that they get. We'll get to that in a second. Because when I say, this has been so like, wah, ah, shoo, wah. That's a great description, Dale, well done. When I say it's a little bit like a Matthew Mercer death resurrection ceremony, I mean in terms of getting that narrative element where people have to try and bring something meaningful to the spell. So for any of these, I would basically have 3 trials along the way that would be kind of like concentration checks, but using different elements of their character. And you'd personalize it per character, and you'd, you know, make it fit the situation, stuff like that. Get in there with that character building, role-playing stuff. Although the ranger is probably gonna just more grapple things. For them, it's more of a test of skill. Then, where the ranger gets to really sort of hone in and choose what they want to make into their animal companion, but also have to wait longer before they can get an animal companion. When it comes to the more magical, mystical creatures, I make it much less of a matter of choice. I have lists of just basically all the animals. I'll throw it up on the screen so you can maybe pick some out that you can go, ooh, that's a pangolin. But yeah, there's lots of unusual options in there, a couple of magical options, a lot of really standard, you know, run-of-the-mill seeming options. And what I would do during the ritual, after all the different bits have been done and decisions have been made, she would, for example, say, I would put the scales in the center. And I'd be like, okay, great. And once she finishes all the trials, I would take all my different hats full of these animals. I would combine the hats of the fur and the feathers creatures, mix them all in, and then she would pick 2 slips of paper from the scales hat and 1 from the mixed fur and feathers hat. So there's that element of random. We don't know what she's gonna get because I want it to be kind of Patronus-y, right? I want there to be that element of like, what's it gonna be? Who knows? What form will my piece of self take? Because in my universe, that's what this is. A familiar is basically an extension of yourself that has taken the form of an animal that can help you out. And then the player gets to choose which of those 3 they actually want their familiar to be. Because I also don't want them to get stuck with something that they hate. So anyway, that's a D&D video. I probably discourage you from using this system, but it is a system that I use, so hey, do what you want. If you want more D&D videos, ask me questions, because I don't know how much I have to say without prompts from you guys, so keep them coming. Apart from that, I do believe that's it. I'm done. Email this to your grandma and I'll see you some other time. To be fair, I am a crazy person, so...